So hi Iris, welcome. I know this is your first session here, and so before we start, I just wanted to talk a little bit about ourselves so we get to know each other and feel a little bit more comfortable. So my name is Rayan. I'm a licensed mental health counselor. I graduated from Nova, and I will be your counselor for the remaining of the sessions. So why don't you go ahead and tell me a little bit about yourself?
Like you already know, my name is Iris. I'm currently a graduate student, and I'm also a newly teacher, um, which is interesting. I just started that job, and yeah, it's just really been an interesting journey. I actually also just opened up my own business last month. So that's been also like a new journey. So I've had a lot of new things happen in the last month.
That's good. That sounds very exciting. Tell me a little bit about your family.
I'm married. I just got married in April, and I don't have any children. It's just me and my husband and our dog. My family is in Michigan, so all of my family is in Michigan. I don't have any family members here, but I come from a very traditional Mexican family. When I say traditional, my parents were born here. However, our traditions have been passed down.
Right.
I am bilingual, so my language was passed down. But yes, we are very. I'm very family oriented, and just being away from home is normal. Not normal in my culture. Actually, I'm probably the only one in my whole family who lives in a different state. In my immediate family, so it's interesting, that whole dynamic.
How has that been for you being away from your family?
I've been here a little bit over a year and a half at this point. My first year was great, but I noticed within the last 3 months it's been difficult as far as just kind of now when I go to visit it. And I like to call my first year my vacation phase because it really just felt like I was on vacation. The first 6 months I was here was by myself, so it was really, really empowering for me to get to know myself. I never lived away from my family. I lived at home. Even during my college career, I was living at home. So I never experienced like not living at home. So I literally went from, living at home to moving like halfway around the country.
Right.
And by myself. So that whole transition was, like I said, empowering to me. Now that I look back, my first 6 months, I learned a lot about myself. I lived alone. I had to kind of fend for myself, like, where do I go buy this? How do I do this? If something breaks, like, I have to fix it. If I don't feel good, I have to, make sure that I'm making those calls. Like, do I need to go to the doctor? How to do that? So just that whole transition, finding, a new religion is important for me. So finding a new place of worship here as well. All those transitions were great. The first 6 months, difficult, but not impossible. But still, it was exciting to be here. It was a new journey, and I think that my mentality was what was keeping me so excited. My husband moved out 6 months once I had been here for 6 months by myself. So then having him was a good experience because I wasn't alone anymore. And he came at the right time because after those 6 months, I'm like, okay, well, I'm starting to feel a little alone here. Yeah, homesick. I'm just kind of, the long distance was also a little bit difficult with the relationship as well. So he came at the right time. Now I have, a companion, so it's a little bit better. Discover things, sometimes, especially I didn't have any friends. So with not having friends or family members, it's kind of like you start a new life all over again, and having to build new connections. When you're back home, you've had this set friends that you've had forever, and you say, hey, I want to go here. Hey, I want to do this. And you go do it. But when you don't have that, sometimes you have tough days at work, or, school gets a little difficult, and you're like, well, I can't like vent, like I don't have anywhere to go, I gotta stay home. Because sometimes you need that, like going out, that breath of fresh air with someone, chit chat, whatnot. So that was a little difficult, but I've noticed, within the last 3 months when I go visit home, it's not an easy goodbye anymore. It's more like, okay, like I made the decision within the last 3 months that once I graduate, I'm gonna move back 2 hours away from home because not necessarily I don't want to be in my hometown. I was born and raised there, so I know it left and right. So I want a new experience, but I want to be closer to home where I'm just a drive away, 2 hours away, as opposed to a whole plane ride away. I have 2 sisters, so they're younger, and I'm missing out a lot on their lives, and that just hurts me a lot, you know? So they're a great part of me. I would say that my sisters are probably the most important thing that to me. So not having them around makes it difficult. So yeah, I feel homesick a lot more than I have before. So it's a transition.
Yeah, so it sounds like family played a really big part for you, and coming down here by yourself, you kind of had to reground yourself and kind of be a little bit more independent. I commend you on your mentality. Usually people would see this as a challenge and difficult, but you chose to learn things from it, which is really great, and that says a lot about yourself. You mentioned that your family is a traditional Mexican family, right? Tell me a little bit more about your culture and things you guys value.
For sure. As far as my culture, we're again very family oriented. We value family a lot. It's honestly the most important thing. Like I said, for me, my sisters are pretty much everything to me. So, in essence, it's honestly we don't have any crazy cultural. And when I say crazy, it's nothing that I have to do this or have to do that per se, or have to eat this or have to eat that. But it's definitely more, when I say traditional, it's the whole mentality, the thought process, it's the culture with, the American culture is a little bit different from the Mexican culture as far as family. We stick together, it's pretty self-explanatory as far as, our grandparents are always with us. Every member of our family is normally with us. So when I say traditional Mexican family, that's kind of more or less what I mean. We kind of just stick together.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's really good, and it sounds like if you need it, you have a really great support system behind you. Would you say that having your family or maybe your husband, incorporating them within therapy if you need it, would that be something you'd be interested in?
Having that, yeah, absolutely. I think my family is very involved in my life. My mom, I'm the oldest of 3 girls, so my mom is very involved in my life. And although I am, halfway around across the country, she's, very involved. I call her every day, to be completely honest with you. I call my sisters every day. So when I say important to me, I truly do mean it, because it is, my source, and then my husband is also my source. They're kind of what powers me to get through tough times, or just even get through situations that are tough.
That's good. I know you mentioned earlier that religion is important to you. Tell me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So with being a traditional Mexican, for the most part, we tend to be Catholic. And it's very important to me. I went to a Catholic high school. I went to a Catholic college. So it's it's been incorporated in my life for a while. I was born and raised Catholic, so but it wasn't until I saw the true meaning of what faith was for me that I started going full force into my faith. And I want to say that happened in college. In my undergrad, I was faced with a really tough family issue. My stepdad was diagnosed with cancer, and he was not doing so great. So for me, that's kind of when my faith was tested and also secured and became a lot stronger, because it was tested in a way that I'm like, oh no, what's going on, God? Why is my, stepfather, why does he have this illness? I can't lose him. Just that whole process of, going through that grief of him having that illness, and then, praying and solely putting my hope into my prayer and endlessly doing that I was able to rejoice when I found out that my stepdad had no longer, this illness. So that's when my faith became a lot stronger, because I was really able to, I'm going to be honest, I wasn't a churchgoer. My family would go to church here and there, but I wasn't avidly going every Sunday to church. However, when my stepdad was diagnosed, I made it a habit to pray every Sunday, go to every Sunday, and in that time, I really was trusting God with what was going on. I was able to kind of vent every Sunday and offer up, me coming every Sunday for him to get better. And when he did get better, it just became habit for me to always go and give thanks for him being better. So that was maybe 4 years ago. And, it's still to this day has become something that for me is important because I truly go every Sunday, and I'm one of those people who I don't go with my husband if he doesn't want to. I take it upon myself. My husband actually works on Sundays, so I go by myself. And when I was here alone, I go by myself. So even back home, sometimes my family's tired, whatever the case may be, I go by myself. So that's just, the relationship that I have with God and with my faith. So, yeah.
That's good. And it sounds like this can be an aspect that we could use later on as maybe a tool that you can use to get strength from, because you said that has worked for you in the past. Based off everything we've said already, what are some maybe customer practices that would be important for you during therapy, if there are any?
For sure. I mean, this is my first time in therapy, so I'm not really familiar with customs or practices, but I think for me, a lot of the times I feel maybe that when I'm challenged, I don't want to say trouble, but sometimes it can be hard for me to empower myself. So I think maybe feeling that sense of like backup and feeling the reassurance is something that I could benefit from.
Okay, sounds good. I think we got enough background. So tell me a little bit about what's going on and what brings you in today.
For sure. Like I mentioned, I just got a new position, and with that comes a lot of stress as well with school, just because now I'm per se being a teacher is I took this role and I decided to leave my past job. I was working in finance, and I didn't feel like that was actually going to prepare me for what I was studying in school. So I thought about becoming a teacher, figured that might be a better route, being that I do want to work with adolescents. So I looked into it, I researched, and I said to myself, well, although I'm making good money in finance, I'm not truly happy here, and I'm kind of like a robot every day because I'm not like satisfying my inner, feeling of wanting to make a difference every day or helping someone. So I applied for a teaching position. I had actually been applying since July, and I had been going to teacher fairs and job fairs, and it was just kind of difficult for me to get a position, being that I had no prior teaching experience. So that was a challenge for a while, trying to figure out like, okay, there's a shortage of teachers, but I don't have experience, and I wasn't upset whatsoever because at the end of the day, I don't have experience, but it was a challenge for me. I was fortunate enough to actually get a position to be a teacher, and it was actually really interesting because that same day I had a one-on-one with my boss at my prior job, and it was terrible. It was more or less him basically telling me that if I wasn't performing a little better, he was going to write me up, and it was really eye-opening for me. Like I said, faith is really important to me. So sometimes I do believe things happen for a reason, and it was interesting because that same day I had an interview for the school. So I have never cried in any of my jobs, but it was so difficult for me to have a conversation. Mind you, I've always been a very stellar worker. I've always been performer of the month, and I've always had recognitions left and right, with school as well. So for me, having that talk with him was a little bit difficult. Mind you, my boss was kind of a story in itself because he was never really a good one anyway, to be completely honest with you. So us having that conversation definitely sparked me to kind of have an emotional breakdown because I felt like, wow, I've never been written up in my entire life, and because I had a bad month last month, we're resorting to this, So I felt like I was being attacked, and it wasn't just really interesting how I'm like, I'm going to shake it off. I'm going to go to this interview. I'm going to, kill it, do whatever I can to get this position, because clearly what happened today is not going to help the fact that I already don't want to be here doing what I'm doing. So I really need to get it together and get this position. So thankfully, I went to the interview, and as soon as I left, an hour later, I got a call advising me that I had gotten the position. So it was a really good feeling, especially
Mhm.
since I had started my morning in a conference room
Right.
being told I was going to be written up. So I did, I put everything I had into this interview because I needed to go. And I actually even told myself, had I not gotten this position, I would have left anyway for something because no one wants to be attacked. And I don't think anyone should feel attacked at the workplace.
Right.
So it was just, and there was a build up to that. So, but thankfully I'm out of there. And so I'm teaching this position now where I am teaching 6th and 7th graders. And the class that I'm teaching are students who are the bottom 30% of Florida testing. So these students are having difficulties reading. I teach an elective. It is an elective, so it's called intensive reading.
Mhm.
So a lot of the students that are in my class are students that have learning disabilities or students that don't care or students that have language deficiencies, so they don't speak fluent English.
Mhm.
So it's very challenging. Like I said, I've been working here for 2 weeks, and it's really challenging because I am a fresh teacher, and not only am I young, the kids obviously know that as well. They can see it, but I'm new, and for me to take on such a challenging class set, and I have 128 students, for me to take on that challenge, it's a lot and it's very draining. I used to come into a situation where, I was working in a desk every single day, the normal business hours.
Mhm.
However, now I'm standing up. I am babysitting, basically, making sure that, little Johnny doesn't hit little Tommy, or, I'm making sure that, these kids are safe. So we're not talking about a 9 to 5 computer job anymore. We're talking about, I don't even sit at my desk. We're talking about me walking around, constantly talking, six different classes. So it's draining. It's absolutely draining, physically and mentally. I come home and I notice that I'm sleeping, I'm coming home, and right when I get home, I go to my bed and take a 3-4 hour nap, which is not like me at all whatsoever.
Mhm.
But I'm definitely able to tell that I'm really, really exhausted. And I'm worried. I'm worried for myself because, in a way, it's a good challenge, and I don't feel like it's something that I want to quit. But I do feel like it's something that, right now, like I said, it's new. It's 2 weeks, but I do feel like it could get very frustrating and very intense to the point where I may not want to do it. So.
I mean, it sounds like you came from a really big transition, and like you said, things just happened to align for you, which is great. What is the most troubling part about this?
I think the most troubling part is the fact that I am very inexperienced and there was no guidance as far as how to handle this specific set of children.
Mhm.
Now, mind you, like I said, I don't like to group them in a category, but at the end of the day, there are students that are struggling. Had they not been struggling, they wouldn't be in this elective.
Right.
So being that they're already struggling and it's an elective that's already been taken away from them because they have to be placed into this classroom, they're already not happy that they're in this classroom. So being that I'm a new teacher, I don't feel like I have the skill sets to properly prepare these children
Mhm.
to read. And since I have so many of them, it's a little difficult. Like I said, I mean, first I have to learn classroom management, which is something that all teachers have to learn, and it's a very difficult point of being a teacher, you know what I mean? But not only that, I have to learn the content that I have to teach them. I didn't come like most teachers, in the beginning of the year. There's training that is offered. The year already started. These kids already their mindset's already school. So, like I said, it's very on the go,
Mhm.
and I don't feel like I'm properly trained to help.
Prepared.
Exactly.
Right, which can be frustrating for anyone. So what would you like to be doing that you're not currently doing?
I feel like for me, I would benefit better personally from teaching a different subject. I think for me, per se, I maybe would want to teach a core subject as far as like social studies because I am certified to teach social studies. So I think that would align better with me being a first year teacher because everyone has to take social studies. So it's not that attitude shift of these students is different and they're not struggling. Like I said, I mean, I have it's a broader set of students that are now in my class, as opposed to having all the struggling students in one class. And like I said, in that same class, I have people with learning disabilities and people that don't speak. So I just have like a dynamic set of individuals in my classroom, and I can't get to all of them like I want to get to them. And that just is difficult. You know, I have a lot of students who have behavioral issues who don't want to be here. They don't want to be there. They are upset that they're there. And that really changes the dynamic of absolutely everybody else in the classroom, because then you have one angry student and now everyone's angry.
So it sounds like you would want to be more prepared and kind of have an easier classroom so that you can gain the experience that you would need to teach the classroom you have right now.
Yep.
Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that's extremely correct. I mean, for me, it's come to the point where I'm like, great, like I would feel like I've been thrown to the wolves essentially, because I'm not being thrown into a normal classroom that a new teacher might have been thrown at. I'm being thrown at a classroom that, you know, these children get rid of teachers like it's nothing. So it's maybe wasn't the best choice for the school to place me in that classroom.
Right. How have you been dealing with this? Because I know you said you've been there for 2 weeks.
Yep. So, you know, I've been playing it ear by ear. I've told myself I'm giving myself a month to adjust and have the kids adjust, because a lot of the times, you know, children don't like change.
Right.
And so I'm completely aware of that, and I'm giving myself a month for that adjustment period. However, I do feel that I need to bring these concerns up to the literacy coach, which is like my point of contact. She is in charge of the classroom per se. So I do think that I need to bring these concerns up to her, because the last thing I want to do is leave education and quit and only give it a month when, potentially I could get a different place in a different classroom, or maybe have another resource as far as maybe having a tutor in there or another teacher in there, something that's more beneficial to the kids, because at the end of the day, I'm okay teaching. Like, I'd love to do it. But a lot of the times, because I have so much children with behavioral issues, they cut into like half of my time, and now I need that, you know, extra time to teach the other ones.
Okay. So what would you say would be your ultimate goal for the end of treatment? What would you like to see happen?
I guess for the end of treatment, I don't want to feel as like stressed and overwhelmed with the heavy set of, you know, kids that I have. I would want to be either more adjusted into the role to the point where, you know, I know how to handle and be prepared for these situations, or maybe be in a different role in a different classroom where I feel like I'm more at ease and I don't feel like the children there are just, you know, very intense.
So it sounds like more coping skills, learning how to deal with the difficult situation. And you also mentioned switching. So would you say you would rather cope, or would you, I know it would be easier to switch, but what would be?
Honestly, I wouldn't mind coping.
Okay.
If I was given the correct resources and the proper resources, as far as maybe another, you know, teacher in certain classes, because some of my classes, I would say like 2 out of my 6, I would be okay teaching by myself. But I would say like there's the other 4 that really could benefit, the students could benefit from having somebody else in there. Because like I said, I'm new, so maybe I can't offer them what a skilled teacher can offer them, but if another teacher is there, we can work together.
You guys can work, yeah, exactly. That makes sense. Okay, so it sounds like class management and things like that, things that an experienced teacher would have, you kind of have to shove down and learn quickly. And I think coping mechanisms, we can get to that. Get through that. I know you have family and you said faith, so those can be important tools to incorporate. I think you do have a lot on your plate, and that seeking help and getting help with that is really great, because a lot of stress on one person. So I think we can work through that further in our next session, and I look forward to seeing you then.
Thank you.
Thank you.